Joseph Ellis, in his book Founding Brothers: The Revolutionary Generation, attempts to prove that the Founding Fathers had the greatest impact on U.S. history. He uses specific facts in order to show their great influence on the future of the country. He writes to the American public to make sure everyone has a clear knowledge of the Founding Fathers. Let's have a more familiar face help me explain.
Hello, I am the host, and this is The Review. Today we will be discussing a historical novel about the creation of our great nation. Let me welcome my guest, the one and only President Barack Obama. Let's start out by introducing the book. It is The Founding Brothers: The Revolutionary Generation by Joseph Ellis. Mr. President, what did you think about the book?
The book reminded me why I'm proud to be an American. The Founding Fathers truly deserve our praise, and their stories need to be told.
What do you believe is the overlying thesis of the book? What is he trying to prove?
Ellis wants to show that this particular generation had the greatest influence on American history. This is not just true because they created the country, but the choices they made reflected the future of it.
Can you give an example of how the Founding Fathers did this?
The third chapter, titled The Silence, details the debate over the abolition of slavery. The decision to delay a response helped increase sectionalism and indirectly helped lead to the Civil War. The decision they made was a compromise that needed to be taken.
Who do you believe is the intended audience?
Ellis wrote this book for the American people so they could have a clear understanding of the period. He used very specific facts to help inform the reader about how each individual detail affected the future of the country.
One more question. Did Ellis prove his thesis successfully?
Ellis successfully proved that the Founding Fathers had a significant effect on the country, but failed to illustrate its relative importance compared to the later eras of U.S. history.
That is all the time we have for our show. Thank you, Mr. President, for coming on the show. Thank you for tuning in, and come back next week for my next review.
Ellis divides the book into 6 separate sections. The first is entitled The Duel and details the feud between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. He uses specific facts such as times and exact locations to show its meaning on the context of history. The next section, called The Dinner, explains the significance of the agreement between Alexander Hamilton and James Madison and their mediation from Thomas Jefferson. Hamilton agreed to let the Capitol be built at Washington, D.C., even though he wanted it to stay in the North. Madison agreed to let the government assume all the state's debt, which upset him because Virginia was close to paying off their debt. He illustrates some common misconceptions about the event because it was very complicated and could not be settled at one dinner. Section 3, The Silence, signifies the future implications that took place after Congress decided to delay a response to the growing abolitionist movement. This delay was important because immediate abolition would hurt the growth of the new nation. It also told of Ben Franklin's influence on Congress's decision. The country needed to establish its principles before it could take any stance on the issue. Section 4, The Farewell, illustrates the lasting effects of George Washington's farewell address, which helped set a tradition of a 2-term limit. It detailed the importance of unity over sectionalism, the necessity of maintaining the principles of the Constitution, the dangers of political parties, the importance of checks and balances, the importance of morality in politics, the dangers of government debt, and the importance of free trade. The most important aspect was his advice not to enter into entangling alliances. In accordance with his beliefs, he does not want his speech to have great influence on politics to prevent himself from receiving too much power. Section 5, The Collaborators, showed how relationships can affect the decisions of a president. The first relationship was between John and Abigail Adams and the extension of First Lady powers, which would be used by Eleanor Roosevelt and Hillary Clinton. The second relationship was between Thomas Jefferson and James Madison that helped expand Jeffersonian democracy even when Jefferson was no longer in office. He shows that these collaborations helped advance the nation and foreshadow future events. The final section, The Friendship, shows the remarkable alliance between Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. They worked together to create the Declaration of Independence and died on the same day, July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Joyce Appleby of the Washington Post stated, "In lesser hands, the fractious disputes and hysterical rhetoric of these contentious nation-builders might come across as hyperbolic pettiness. Ellis knows better, and he unpacks the real issues for his readers, revealing the driving assumptions and riveting fears that animated Americans' first encounter with the organized ideologies and interests we call parties." Although the book was informative, as Appleby said, it had flaws because it failed to fully argue its thesis. Ellis does not show how the period was more influential than all the other periods. I can easily refute his argument by saying that the Civil War saw the most influence on the country. It saw the abolition of slavery and helped lead to the Civil Rights Movement. Ellis needs to specifically show how it compared to the future eras. Ellis's book more closely relates to a history book than to rhetoric on U.S. history. It gives facts to inform his audience, but does not spend too much time elaborating on a specific thesis. This does not make it a bad book, because it just means Ellis shows little bias on the period. There is still always bias, but Ellis treats his novel as a textbook and keeps his opinions aside. Ellis is extremely thorough and makes sure when he brings up a question, he answers it fully. I had no questions in my mind after reading this book because Ellis provided me with all the information I needed on the topic. While reading Ellis's bibliography, I noticed the author used two kinds of sources. The first kind is documents from the period. This provides actual accounts of what happened, which help provide Ellis with all the specific details. Primary sources, however, can have serious bias because each person wants to make themselves look good. The second kind is sources from other books, mostly written in the 20th century. These books will have good information, but if historians discovered flaws in what we used to think, then their information Ellis used is wrong. In my personal opinion, the book was magnificent. It provided me with information I couldn't have even imagined. I would keep this book because it had a lot of great information, and it showed me how the Founding Fathers' actions affected the future of the U.S. My favorite line was the last thing Ellis said. It refers to John Adams' final words. It is, "He wakened for a brief moment, indicated that nothing more should be done to prolong the inevitable, then with obvious effort gave a final salute to his old friend with his last words, 'Thomas Jefferson survives,' or by another account, 'Thomas Jefferson still lives.' Whatever the version, he was wrong for the moment, but right for the ages." It was inspiring because Ellis was trying to say that old revolutionary ideals still exist, and we can have leaders as great as the Founding Fathers.